Hello and welcome to Paradigm Playbook, a podcast for entrepreneurs in the business of sports. Your hosts, Dave Kozak and Steve Cook, are business owners, successful entrepreneurs, sports enthusiasts, avid readers, and longtime friends. For years, they've read every business book on the market and built successful companies with what they've learned. This podcast will give you the critical takeaways in just 15 minutes a week. It's a quick and easy playbook for building a winning sports business. And now, here are your hosts, Dave and Steve.
Thank you for listening. Visit ParadigmPlaybook.com to discover how we can support you and your business. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Paradigm Playbook. I'm your host, Dave Kozak, alongside my co-host, Mr. Steve Cook.
Happy Wednesday. Is it Wednesday?
It is Wednesday, and I'll tell you what, I'm running hot today, Steve.
I've been fearing this for a week.
So just a lot of good stuff happening.
There's a little bit of reflection this week too. So we're going to have to accept that, take it on ourselves.
Yeah. And, before the episode started, Steve and I were chatting, and I was talking about business owners getting distracted with things that aren't necessarily the right things to be distracted with. And it reminds me of a Venn diagram. If you draw two circles on a board and you put things you can control in one circle and things that are important in the other circle, where they intersect is the things you need to focus on, right? And that's what's important. The things you can control and the things that are important. Those are the focus points. And it reminded me of a story where, had an employee get really worked up because decisions were made outside of their world. And I basically said, well, what do you want to do about it? And so I don't know. Turned to me and said, what do I want to do about it? I said, well, is the work getting done? Maybe it's not getting done the way we want, but it's getting done and it's not on our plate anymore. So is it going to be good enough? Probably. So let's leave well enough alone and not get distracted with that type of negative thought or that you would have made a different decision. We'll analyze the results and we'll figure out if it was effective or not, and we'll move on. So all that to say, one of the most important things that you have to do as a business owner is reflect on what you do, how you do what you do, what your people do, right? In the people environment, we have annual reviews, or we have, coaching sessions or sales calls or customer service meetings and things where you're constantly kind of reflecting down. Today's episode is all about reflecting up, right? And so it's the idea that at the top, what are you doing effectively? What are you doing poorly? And which of those things fall in the middle of that Venn diagram that is, I can control it. It is important. I need to address it. So we laid out a bunch of tools last week, Steve, that I think are just incredible tools, right? You had your process designer, you had your impact filter, and then you had your opportunity filter. So those are all sort of downline workload management decision-making tools. The one I want to dig in today is it's from Business Finishing School. And you can go to businessfinishingschool.com. I think you can find this. I don't think it's a secret. I think they give this one out. It's an entry point for them as opposed to an exit point, right? Mm-hmm. You're not getting all the answers of how to fix this stuff. You're just diagnosing the problem with this tool. And it's, what is your Superman, Superwoman syndrome quotient is the tool we're working on. And so let's talk about the Superman, Superwoman, Superhuman syndrome as I see it, right? And I try and simplify things, Steve. So to me, and I'll get your perspective on this in a second, because you actually texted me this question the other day. Like, if you go out there and you look for Superman or Superhuman syndrome, like, you're going to get a lot of different responses. To me, it is the idea that if it's meant to be, it's up to me. If it's going to get done, I've got to be the one to do it. I want to do it right the first time. And so I'm sort of going to take everything on. And so there's parts of it that have to do with delegation. There's parts of it that have to do with balance and all of that. But to me, it's the person that takes on everything.
So I think the key here is, and this fits right into the EOS and Gino's idea of, right people in the right seats. So we're starting with that top seat and get the right person in there, but making sure that is right. So are you choosing what you do based on what needs to be done, what you're good at or what you like. And they're not all the same. And sometimes there's something that you're really good at.
I don't want to interrupt your thought, but next week we're talking about elevate and delegate.
Okay,
it's already on because that's an incredible tool as well.
But so I'm just saying, if you're just doing what you're really good at, and my thing, I always fancied myself as the best salesman on my team. But if I'm going out making sales, then what I'm creating is a bad manager. So I'm not doing my job because I'm doing something that I'm good at. So in business, I think that happens to everybody. Sports business, we see it all the time. You're the best coach. You're the best, accountant or what. And you end up finding yourself in a place that's comfortable, that's not maybe necessary.
Yeah. And, it's funny because I'm working with a client right now. They have a really nice construction business. The problem with the construction business is it's hit a bottleneck. And the bottleneck is in proposals. And it is in getting and estimating the cost of the projects. And historically, that has been the owner of the company's role. Go out, make sure that they're making money on the deals, make sure that the deals are being quoted properly, the timetables are being charted effectively, and that they can follow through on their obligation. And it's a big sticking point because that is a control mechanism. At the same time, it's that owner of that business is the best at closing those deals. And I said, but to go to the next level, to go from a $7 million business to a $20 million business, you've got to have 4 people doing that. So how do you create the controls and give them the headway to do it? And how do you never go out and quote another piece of business again? Because that is what's going to make the next step for him.
So you get back to the same thing where it's your primary goal needs to be to train the person that's going to take every piece off your plate eventually.
Yep.
So you want this business to operate effectively without you so you can move into that visionary role and figure out what's next.
Yeah. And I'll use my own business as an example, and then we'll get into the Superman syndrome. A common employee of ours, her name is Michelle in our organization.
She's anything but common.
But she is an uncommon breed without question.
Yes, okay.
It's funny. Michelle and I used to work every day hand in hand. We were tag team on everything. And as we expanded the company, as I grew and I brought reps in and we had customer service operations and just straight operations across multiple companies, Michelle and I started to work not daily with each other. As a matter of fact, we probably meet for 20 minutes 2 times a week in reality. And I said to her, Michelle, I need you back in my world. Like, what is going on? And I said, I feel like we're losing the game because we don't have that. And she turned to me in one fell swoop and said, well, at the time, Dave, when we worked hand in hand, you were running all sales and I was supporting. I was basically doing everything supporting. Said, now I don't really do sales, but she runs the entirety of the sales department.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this, she's doing what she's always done and more and better and better. And now she's taken over that division of the organization. And so it's like, yeah, because I'm not in that role anymore, but she has elevated herself to the top of it. So it's exactly what you look for.
Yeah. You're looking for, her growth. She's grown away from a need for your support. You're growing in a different direction with something else. And the overall business is growing.
Correct.
And I think that takes place in every business. And it doesn't mean that you can give up that last 20 minutes though.
No.
So I think you need to do that. And if you get to the point, and back in my sports world, if I'm owner of a facility and I don't know what the coaches are saying, if I am so far removed that I don't know that, then I can't be the visionary. I can't be the one that's leading the market team, there's got to be a catalyst that takes it from what you hear in the gym or on the court or on the field and into the marketing meeting room so that we know how to market what we're doing.
Yeah. On that note, Steve, let's talk about the Superman syndrome. And so what it is it's a way to reflect back on your management leadership and whether you are being very effective and looking for exponential growth and success, or whether you've reached what I call the Peter principle, right? Which is you rise to your level of incompetence.
The way I go back, and the reason I texted you the question before is, in my mind, the Superman syndrome actually came from a clinical term, and a clinical term is having that extra Y chromosome. And in the beginning, when it was defined, it was the idea that Superman, it's macho. I am all things to I can do everything. And so in a business sense, it was adopted as the idea that I need to do all this. If it's going to be done right, I'm going to do it. And you're all controlling over everything. And it went from being, a trait positive to a trait negative. And we're saying, okay, so when we just went through doing our tests here, and anybody wants this test, shoot us an email. If you can't find it on your own, we'll gladly send it to you. But you go through and rate yourself, and you get a score of 1 to 100. Maybe no one's 100 and no one's a 1. I hope.
Well, the first time I did it, to give everybody so you feel some calm, I was a 19 out of 100, and I run a pretty good business.
And the higher the score really means the more you're stepping away. It's not growing. You're not 100 if you're doing everything and you're in control and you're the man. It's you're 100 when you know what's going on and you're in control, but you're not doing most of it.
It goes back to the 2-week vacation question.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. When was the last time you took a 2-week vacation? And I think I'm going to say a 2-week vacation without your cell phone, because I'm pretty sure no one's done that. That one's not going to happen. Why don't we go through a couple of the questions on the survey here?
Well, so let's hit the big 10 topics, Steve, and then we'll hit the questions, right? So question 1's about delegation, 2's about time management, 3's about business strategy, 4's about leadership, 5's about debt, 6 is about values-based decision-making, 7 is stress, 8 is company accountability and major business outcomes, 9 is individual accountability, and 10 is purpose. Right. So essentially they ask you a question on all of these things and you rate yourself on a 1 to 10 on each of those. So let's start with number 1, simple and huge. I have no problem delegating tasks and objectives in me business.
In my business.
Whoops.
Somebody
That's
mistyped that.
In fact, I delegate even the most important objective of my company. Right. So how many of you delegate the most important things that your company does? Right. And I'm a 5.
My life is weird. And I will qualify this whole thing with me as there's certain of these things that you grow into just with age. And so I'm at a different stage. Dave and I are a couple years apart. And so I've grown into some of these things. I would like to say that I'm intentionally an 8, but I'm probably in a couple different businesses, an unintentional 8 and a purposeful 4.
Got it.
So there's places where I need to grow and delegate more in my writing, speaking, those careers. In running the sports facility, I'm pretty close to an 8 in that one. I have other people running it and it's working. No?
Yeah. I mean, this is a recent 8.
Yeah. Definitely in the last 5. I mean, but it's a business that I've owned for 20 years and I thumbs on it, ran it for 15.
Yeah. And
it's been a slow turnover as my son has grown into this role. And I shouldn't say that. I don't put it on him. He was respectful in doing it my way for so long. And he's grown because I've allowed it. I've gotten out of the way more so than, I don't know that he's gotten any smarter. I just think that I'm finally getting out of his way.
Hey, sometimes that's the key to delegation is getting out of the way, right? When you hire good people and you have the right butt in the right seat, then let them do what they know how to do, right? And so that's a big thing in delegation is the right butt, right seat. And, but I think there's also let me ask you this question, Steve. If you were convinced that doing it your way would make it 100% perfect and doing it someone else's way that you didn't have to manage and you didn't have to do would get it to 85%, let's say. Which one's a win? So the 85 is the actual win for the company's sake. For your ego's sake, it's a little bit different. And for a long time in my sales career, I was the one that wouldn't give that up. It was, if it was a moderately valuable client, I'll delegate it. The top ones, I want them myself. And that's a mistake. I think I made plenty of mistakes in my sales career because I wasn't delegating. I also think that it's not just delegating the top most important things. It's delegating the things that you shouldn't be doing anyway. If you always, do payroll and you just feel comfortable, you always do payroll, and you should always know about payroll, but you don't always have to do the payroll. So I think those things you should start delegating as soon as you can. And sometimes the lack of delegation is looked at as a financial decision, and we're saving money by doing this, and you intentionally stymie the company if you're holding it back by failure to delegate or failure to hire. Agreed. Next one that they ask about is time management. And the question reads, the way I run my business is relatively straightforward. I rarely work more than 45 hours a week. And while I'm home, I rarely use my laptop, computer, smartphone for work. I've learned not to have electronic leash connecting me to the office or email.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
As I said to you when you walked in, I'm always watching. Mm-hmm. So I'm a 5 on this. I don't typically get my laptop out unless I have a project I'm working on. If there's something where I am the catalyst behind it and I want to try something new and I've got to outline it, I will do that on my own time. I'm better today than I ever have been. I used to be a 1 in this category where I was just in business all the time. I was always in business. My kids would get annoyed because I'd be on a phone call while I'm driving them to practice or whatever. So I have really started to put up barriers. And so I won't do work when I go home until my kids go to bed, or until my oldest 2 are now, they're starting to stay up later. So I'm in the basement.
They put you to bed.
Yeah. My daughter tucks me in every night. But I used to go down to my desk in the basement and work, from after dinner until it was time for people to go to bed, and I'd go tuck them in and go back down. Now I usually start about 9:00 and I try and kill it by 11. I used to work until 2 and 3 in the morning just to get ahead. The same way you get up at 4 to be there early. I used to burn the candle at both ends and stay up late and do it. So I'm getting better with that. And the business, I'd like to say we're getting to a plateau where it's straightforward, but we're working through some mergers and acquisitions. So there's always exceptions in my eyes.
Looking for small business consulting? Visit ParadigmPlaybook.com to book a session with us.
I also think that so there's a few things that I don't fully agree with, and that's, everybody says I'm balancing, home and work. And, I think it's an integration. I'm not sure it's a balance. If you're an entrepreneur, you're running a business and you expect to work 40 hours, I think you can work 40 hours in a very average business. But if you want to excel and you want to be the best at anything, it's not going to be 40 hours. So I think it has to be integrated, and I think you have to understand it. But I'm not one that says, and I don't count hours. I can't tell you how many hours I worked. And if it's productive, it's good. If it's someone else controlling you, then they talk about the electronic leash or whatever. I don't think that's good. That means the business isn't organized right. If every problem has to come to you, if you're the entrepreneur, you're the one running this, if everything has to come to you, then that's an organizational problem, more so that's causing a time management problem. But it's not the time management. It's time management. I said they talk about all the, Stephen Covey did it, and, there's all these levels of it. And the current level of time management is all the things that you do today that buy you more time tomorrow. So there are organizational things that you have to get done. Now, I mean, it's, I spent 10 years saying I never had time to set up online bill payment. Just didn't have time. So
if you care enough, you find a way. If you don't, you find an excuse.
Right. So, but that's something that if sit down and figure it out. And even if you're, my brain set and it takes you 2 hours to figure it out, but then it saves you an hour a week for the rest of your life. So that's the current, the multipliers approach to time management is what can you do that's going to get you more time tomorrow? So I think the first step is understanding what they're saying here is, what the issues are with time management and maybe some of the mistakes that we're making, and then building, a future so it not to go from 60 hours to 40 hours. I don't think that's necessarily the goal.
Well, I think there's another component here that I've preached about for 15 years. When you're an entrepreneur, right, they talk about work-life balance. They talk about hobbies and things like that you need to have to balance it. Well, for the last 15 years, my hobby has been growing my business. Yeah. It has been my passion. It's what I love doing. Like I love the feeling of success when you implement something, it works, and you've created a new model or a new something, right? So I don't always count the passion stuff that I do as work. It's what I'm choosing to do, right? So some of those nights where I'm working till 2 or 3 in the morning, it's not because I was under the gun to get something done. It's because I was in the moment, passionate, and was on a thought pattern that was going to be revolutionary, and I just pursued.
Yeah, and so you evaluate your time management on your scale, not on someone else's. But if someone else looks at you and says, "Dave, you work till 2 in the morning, you're a workaholic." Well, that sounds so negative. I hate that thing. So right now, I got to say, I'm so excited about Paradigm Playbook and what we're doing every week that I'm probably working more hours. Now, the hours I'm working now are reading and writing and research and thinking and contacting people and talking to playmakers. And I don't know that any of that really is work. That's my mission. Yeah. That's what I'm doing right now that I love. So I think I'm doing a good job of time. I mean, I sit down and, I write for 2 hours a day. So
well, like if you love to golf, right? Then you go out and golf. Does anybody tell you you're a golfaholic? Like, yeah. I mean, I guess they probably exist, but if I love creating marketing schemes and plans and models, and I love doing corporate structures, and I love creating visions for the business. Like that to me is that's on me, not necessarily the time management.
Anyway, so that's a tough one to rate.
I'm still a 5.
Okay.
Business strategy. As a leader, I always spend more than 50% of my working hours on high level purpose and business strategy related tasks. Again, I'm lower in that right now. And that's something I put a 3 when I went through it. I'm lower in that right now because I've got some things that I just have to handle. And so in a typical environment, I'm probably like a 6 or 7 on that, where I'm really focused on the growth and all that. And so, I go back to E-Myth in that whole model, like the technician versus the manager versus, I spend about 20% of my time in technician. I spend about 20% of my time in manager, and I spend the rest of it on business. But, so I would like to be 100% on the business and working in that role. So I'm pretty critical. That's the other thing I will say is, I am more critical. If someone else filled this out for me, they would probably, in my company, they'd probably be different, but I'm far more critical of myself than others.
So here's one, this may surprise you. And I'm doing this based on Paradigm Playbook. So I rated myself a 2 because I am deep into content creation, interviews, recordings, setting up for this. So I'm really in Paradigm Playbook in the technician space. That's where I'm living right now. And what I'm trying to do is pull people into my world that can help on the strategy side, that can organize it. People like Niall that can organize and run the thing. And I can be a technician because in this business right now, that's my goal, is to be the technician in this business and not be the one that creates the sales funnel or the lead generation.
Yeah. Next is leadership. I'm confident that my business employs the right executives and leadership team. I do not need to hire anyone else to fill any roles in my leadership team. So this one's odd to me, right? Because if all of the things that I'm doing, currently working on, I should need to hire a lot of people, right? So the goal is that I need to be in hiring. So again, I'm a 5 on that. And the only reason I'm a 5 on that, Steve, is because I'm on that leadership team. And so like, I need to get someone that can replace some of what I do, right? Some of my leadership roles, because my leadership roles are now extensive. So I'm at the point where I need to delegate not only the day-to-day operations and stuff, but I need to delegate leadership. I need to craft and create leaders around me, right? And they say the true leader is not really a true leader until they have taught someone else to lead.
This is a really interesting one. So again, I'm sticking with Paradigm Playbook, and I'm going to rate myself as a 5 here. And I think I have the right leader in place, but my leader in this is a 3 in time management. So I need you. So it's like, I've got the right leader in place. And
no, I have a 5 in time management. I have a 3 in business strategy right now.
Well, I just downgraded you to a 4 in Paradigm Playbook, so it's a different world.
Okay,
but we have the right people in place, but everybody within Paradigm Play, and then there's 5 of us or whatever that are working this business right now, but everybody's spinning another plate too. So whether it's the right leadership, I kind of think we have that. Do we have a time management issue? A little bit. So we have growing pains with this, and with that, we've accomplished what we set out to do in the beginning, and it's ready to go to that next step. Mm-hmm. And we just don't have right pieces in place to get us there, I think. So is that leadership or time management or?
It's all blended at this point, Steve. Okay, so you've thoroughly confused my outlook on myself. I'm going from a 53 down to a 45 very quickly. I appreciate the support.
Just saying.
Debt, my business and personal life are both debt free. I'm a 5 there just because on business I like using other people's money. So I don't, and I'm not opposed to leverage.
Yeah, I'm not sure that debt-free is I guess personal debt-free is a worthwhile goal. Business debt-free is, I don't know, is Elon Musk debt-free?
Well, he's got that coveted government contract. So,
So I don't know. I think managing your debt is very important.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I teach people finance all day long. So personal debt is avoid at all costs, other than your long-term mortgages and things like that, because those are leverage. They're not debt. But let's move on. Value-based decision-making. Since business tends to be very complicated today, I realize that having a crystal clear set of values from which all decisions are made simplifies complexity. Therefore, our business has a clear set of values from which we make all decisions. I'm probably a 7 on this, but I spent the better part of the last 2 years defining that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always the with 'em, right? So the what's in it for me. What is the benefit to the client, and what is the benefit to the staff? So I have a very real outlook on, if it's good for me and good for my partnership, if it's good for my employees and it's good for the client, then it's the right decision. And that's not always the most profitable decision, just so everybody knows.
So I'm going to say that I'm a highly obnoxious 9 in this, in that I'm at the stage in my life where I'm doing what's important to me and what's good for the world, and I can comfortably walk away from other things. So I am very purpose driven right now. I'm doing, Paradigm Playbook was all about, me getting to a stage of life where it's like, I got all this crap up here. It's time to give back. So,
well, let's be honest. It's not all crap.
Yeah. Well, I've got all this information that I need to share. And so now that's what I want to do. And, I get coaches all the time and say, well, you should, in the speaking career, everyone says, well, you shouldn't speak if you're getting paid less than blah. And I say, yeah, but if I want to teach them and I have to speak for free, I'm going to. So it's just like, I'm doing a little league coaching clinic on Saturday. And, obviously it's not, moving my career forward, but it's important to me. So I want to do those things. So I'm an obnoxious 9.
Yeah, we're going to reflect back on your business strategy piece there for your free speeches. We'll talk about that. And value-based decision-making is huge. If you have principles, or we call them the paradigm pillars in our company, and we want to be easy to do business with, right? So that's what's good for the client. And if it's good for the client, good for us, then we can make that decision, move forward. We want to be problem solvers. So seek to solve problems as not just identify them. And basically we want to be revolutionary. We want to continuously evolve. So growth mindset. So those are our 3. If it's about growth, if it's good for the client, and it makes us easy to do business with, then that's what. And
if you're sticking to those core values, and everybody should have that type of core value, then I think you can rate yourself very high in that category. And I think,
again, I'm more critical on myself than others.
But I think so we're not just grading you, we're grading, Paradigm Financial, Paradigm Playbook, we're grading, the whole entity. And in that sense, I think, your entire staff understands the core values and we stick to it. Do we get off every once in a while? Yeah. But so I don't know. I think that one, you're probably a little too critical on yourself.
Number 7 is stress. I am never stressed. In fact, I can't remember the last time I was stressed out or reactive about anything that has occurred in my business. So I'm probably a 7 here. I don't get stressed easily. Occasionally I'll get overwhelmed. But I do a pretty good job of just the old importance test. The old, is there anything I can do about it? No. So then why am I stressing about it? Right. I think the personal life stress is real with kids and constantly on the move and constantly doing stuff. But I rate myself pretty high there.
I rate myself pretty high too. And I will, on the podcast, we give kudos to a lot of authors, and I'll give this one to Jason Selk. It has relieved a lot of stress in my life. If anybody's looking for one book to read right now, RSF, Relentless Solution Focus, it relieves you of stress. Absolutely. And The moment I adopted that philosophy, there was a great stress reduction in my life. And I'm with you, Dave. I don't get stressed. I like to solve problems. Now, there is sometimes when, it's like in your marriage or whatever, you're not meant to solve that problem.
Yeah, correct.
So stop solving them all. But RSF is definitely helps everybody score there. That's a can't miss book. You got to get it.
That was one of our first books that we were like, we got to do this. And Relentless Solution Focus it's like a mechanism to solve the stress, right? You know the problem exists. What's one thing you can do to make it better in the next 60 seconds? And the bigger point to me of Relentless Solution Focus, and I didn't want to get distracted on this because we got to get through the rest, but it's progress towards a solution, right? That one step you take, that Relentless Solution Focus is, here's the problem. I'm going to do one thing right now to make it better. You're making progress, and progress is motivating, and progress solves stress. It's lack of progress that creates stress.
Niall, see if you can find out what number podcasts when we talked about RSF.
Okay. Company accountability. Each quarter, I sit down with my leaders to formulate 5 quarterly company objectives. Then we communicate these objectives to all employees along with a bonus system tied to achievement. I'm like a 3 there, but we have been in and out of EOS. We've been up and down, and the one thing that has plagued me is opportunities come very quickly, and mergers and acquisitions have sort of taken the burden, or added to the burden of trying to sort out all the things we're doing. Right. So again, that's one where I'm striving to get there.
And I wish I was 10 years ago where I am now, but I'm out of that corporate. I'm not in the same culture as you are. So, that doesn't, what was that number, Niall?
Number 16 and number 23 podcasts.
I'll hit it out on LinkedIn this week so everybody can find. But if you can go and listen, we talked about RSF. Go ahead. Individual
accountability is the next one. We have levels of accountability down through the organization, all employees, so that everyone's accountable with clear objectives inside the business, and everyone is crystal clear on what to expect from them. Each employee's role is clearly defined. We're pretty decent there, right? So the one what I lack in company accountability, I make up for in individual accountability. Everybody knows their role very well in the organization, but I've added a couple of companies over the course of the last few years that have sort of muddied the water of company accountability. So
in my world, most entrepreneurs are much better at personal accountability than they are team accountability. People fear the sweaty palm conversation, so they never approach these things, and things kind of ride for too long. So I think if anyone's doing this survey yourself, check in on yourself, think about that. The last time you brought up the conversation with an employee that is a good friend, a nice person, you really like them, and they're not cutting it.
Yep.
And how long do you let that ride?
And that's that to me, I solved that problem 10 years ago reading Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team and the fear of conflict. I just don't have it. You will get radical candor. And that's another book, Radical Candor. You'll get radical candor from me, whether you like it or not, just because I don't have time for a lot of feelings in what we're doing. Not that I insult people. It's just like, hey, this isn't good enough. This isn't cut. We need to go back to the drawing board. You need to do it again, present it again.
And once you understand that that's helping everybody,
yep.
and you got to get there, and you got to get there. I mean, it's like a great coach does it all the time. I was listening to who retired yesterday?
Jason Kelsey.
Jason Kelsey retired, and he's talking about the conversation that a coach had with a soon-to-be Hall of Fame athlete that told him he wasn't cutting it.
Mm-hmm.
And look at how that helped that person's life. And we do that all the time with our athletes, where we, dude, you're great, but until you learn to keep your hands in, you're never going to hit a curveball. Yep. So we do that all the time. Yet with our sales manager, we let them slide. Good, they're working hard. They're a good guy.
Yep. And then the last one, we'll wrap it up with this. I know we went a little long today, but I think it's well worth it, is purpose. This is where I put myself at a 10. I feel that personally I am on purpose. I feel that my business has a clear purpose that fully aligns everyone involved in the company, and that everyone in the company can clearly articulate our company's purpose statement.
And I knowing you and your business, I agree with you. I wish I was at that stage when I was your age, and I definitely wasn't. So I was much lower. There was a lot less self-reflection. There was a lot less just do the job and get it done. And the purpose wasn't driven home. Now I'm all the way the other side, and I only do things on purpose. So I've grown,
Yeah.
I guess.
No, and I will tell everybody, do this exercise for yourself, and then give it a year and do it again. And because when I did this, it was at a business convention. I don't know what they could meeting, whatever,
Conference.
Winter conference kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was staggering when I was being critical of myself and reflecting back. And I spent the next 3 years really working on it to improve it. And you can, just like I tell every athlete out there, right? If you want success, like it takes what it takes, what it takes. You see it, people talk about it, right? If you want business success, you can't get there without the practice. And if you want to be a better leader, or you want to be a better delegator, or you want to be a better at strategy, you've got to practice those things.
And if you want help with it, take it to someone else who, on question number 9, you relate 8 or above. If you rate them at 8 or above in accountability, let them do it about you. But you need someone who's going to be honest with you. Give it to a spouse, give it to a best friend, but it's got to go to, if you're the boss, don't give it to someone who's looking to suck up. You don't
you don't need that.
You don't need just good news.
And as always, guys, if you need our help, please reach out to us. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe.
Join in next week. Until then, make it a great day.
Which is delegate and elevate.
Yes. Looking forward to it.
Do you want your business to thrive? Visit us at paradigmplaybook.com and contact us today for expert assistance.